Hi, 2bsirius. I'm going to try to answer really quickly. I'm going to describe a little bit about my subjectivity, the belief that I do have in objective theories, and how it's really just underneath the objective theories, and to explain the anomalies we need relativity, and that in our human world, relativity, there are lots of relativistic situations, whereas in physics they're rare for us. But I don't deal with all 10 of your dilemmas, but I'm going to. I'll make another video where I go read all 10 dilemmas, which I haven't done yet, and try to address each one, just whether relativistic skepticism is the answer or just my own personal take on them, and that'll be a separate video. Basically, I agree in the objective theory. My philosophy is a natural philosophy. I believe all knowledge comes from nature. So that's an objective theory. And so I believe in objectivism to a certain degree of accuracy. Skepticism is not the kind of thing that would have claimed that the Titanic couldn't sink. It's really part of skepticism. It's just an argument. You don't build things with infinitely strong steel. And if I'm standing outside my building, somebody comes up to me and says, "Oh, looks like quite a nice building, 10-story building. Is it made with infinitely strong steel and infinitely strong concrete?" And I say no. And then a builder of the building next door runs up and says, "Hey, my building's infinitely strong steel." And this person's like, "Well, I'd much rather walk into this guy's building. It's infinitely strong." And I'm just like... But the metaphor I want to use is more like this. Newton's laws, F equals ma. These are accurate to a certain degree, to a great degree. I mean, Newton's laws are so accurate that we could still use them. If we never wanted anything better than Newton's laws, we could go ahead and go into space. We could have communication satellites. We don't really use relativity that much. But are they accurate? No. Einstein came up with more accurate versions of those formulae. Now, if you want to stick with F equals ma, I mean, what am I going to do? We had a commenter, Whiskey Man, talking about the objective fact that there are clouds in the sky. Yeah, that's true. I can just demonstrate why that's still not absolute, but it's pretty solid. It's pretty good. And if somebody says, "Hey, this steel can't be penetrated," people might believe it's good enough to call it infinite. So the thing is, these laws, these Newton's laws, they're not the whole story. As soon as you want to understand certain enigmas, you'll find that these Newton's laws don't explain the enigmas. And relativity can explain those enigmas, like the orbital behavior of Mercury. You can look it up. This was explained by relativity. But enigmas are rare. If you don't want to explain the enigmas, you can just ignore the whole the detail and use F equals ma, and that'll probably be good enough. You can just use objectivity in your life. Animals do this. Humans, day to day, I use objectivity. I believe there's an objective world, and I make objective reasoning about the world. But if you want to explain the anomalies, the things that happen at the edges, the confusing bits, then you want to know the bigger picture, with as many of the details as you can get. And in this analogy, F equals ma is like objective knowledge. It's really pretty good enough, not even to a first degree of approximation, but to a third or fourth. I mean, it's pretty good. But it's not the whole story. To explain the enigmas of epistemology and knowledge, we need to understand relativity, and that's true in philosophy. Okay? I believe that to understand that objectivity is really a theory of subjectivity. It's just a way of saying, listen, our building, this objective model, it's not made with infinitely strong steel. It's made with very strong steel. Okay? And that means it's not impervious, and this is why we have to keep rethinking it. Okay, now on to your dilemma. Well, first of all, I have to say I don't think relativistic skepticism really says what you should do in that case. I mean, relativistic skepticism to a large degree is a foundation upon which you can build all different kinds of theories, as long as they all have, you state your criteria and they all come back to sense experience. But within relativistic skepticism, considering we don't know absolutely things, we'd expect contradictory competing theories. So in something as abstract, or not abstract, but as high level as this dilemma that you have given, I think given a dozen relativistic skeptics, you could get a dozen answers. Okay, so keep that in mind. First of all, in analyzing the situation, it's hard to know that I really know that this guy has raped my daughter in this example. But you told me that I believed my daughter. Knowledge in a skeptical frame of reference is, it's stuff that I have enough evidence to act on. It's not that I'm 100% sure. It's that I have enough evidence that I've decided that I will believe this. I still have to admit that I could be wrong. But if I think the chances of being wrong, are really slight, then I will go ahead and act on it. It's like, I know objectively the sun may not come up tomorrow. Maybe the sun's going to blow up. One day it won't come up. But I could still make a bet because, the odds are that if I go ahead and behave like the sun's going to come up, let's say I plan to have breakfast with somebody, that bet is going to pay off. And that's the same kind of thing. I'm saying that I believe that the chance is so small that this guy didn't do it. Because obviously my daughter's in a position to know. I know my daughter. I've added these things together and I say he did do it. So at that point, we already have something. It's kind of difficult sometimes in these examples for then to go on and say, and then you move out of the neighborhood and you do these things. I mean, I don't know, maybe I would have taken a vigilante action on this guy. But okay, I'm following your thing. So I decide that the justice system won't do it. I don't want to create more trouble by taking it into my own hands, so I move. Okay, what would I do then if I am the guy's only alibi? Again, I don't think there's a relativistic skeptical answer. I mean, I could apply the skepticism, but it wouldn't necessarily be honest, because I could apply the skepticism and say, well, I don't really know that it was even him at the restaurant. But I don't think that would be honest. I'm going to go ahead and assume that I did recognize that it was him. I would not bear witness for that guy. Again, this is a personal belief. I think it's compatible with relativistic skepticism, but it is not drawn from the relativistic skepticism. This is drawn from ethical systems that are built on things that are built on things that are built on things that ultimately go down to a foundation of relativistic skepticism. I wouldn't help that guy. I think if you go around raping people's daughters, then you're not going to have many people willing to bear witness for you, right or wrong. I don't see an objective need to make sure that justice happens in this one event when it didn't happen in this other event. I wouldn't bear false witness against the guy. I wouldn't try to get him arrested for a crime he didn't commit. But then again, I don't have to go out and try to help that guy. Other people can do that. Maybe people he hasn't screwed over. Now, on the other hand, if it was known that you were a witness, let's say he saw me as well at the restaurant, he called me up as a witness. Did you see him at the thing that night? I would tell the truth that I had seen the guy, and I would, in that case, tragically help the guy get off of this crime. At least from the idea that he had personally done it. I would go ahead and provide that alibi if asked. And that's just because, I believe in honesty. I believe in, kind of karma. I wouldn't want to bear a false witness on that guy. And some people could say, well, it's the same thing if I remain silent, but I don't really think so, because I think it is wrong to do vigilante justice in a certain sense. But on the other hand, if you're going to do it and take responsibility, or if the justice system is corrupt, I mean, forget our justice system where you could call it corrupt because it didn't catch this guy. Let's say a really actually corrupt system where they're protecting this guy on purpose and they know he's guilty. Yeah, maybe I would take vigilante justice into my own hands. So how different is that from saying, well, I'm not going to be this guy's alibi. Maybe he's getting what he's got coming to him, later. Um, Maybe relativistic skepticism would play a role in the sense that, I would have a sense that I don't really know what the story was between this guy and his wife. And maybe that makes it easier as an excuse to stay out of it. But again, that's not really an honest thing, and so I can't say that comes from the philosophy of relativistic skepticism. Basically what I'm telling you is that this is an emotional issue. And on an emotional level, no, I would not help this guy that's raped my daughter. I'd already helped him by not going over and killing him myself, basically.